Just when you thought the rolling sharpener market could not get more crowded, comes along the ZFORGE, and it is a game changer when it comes to rolling knife sharpeners, and I'm gonna tell you about it right now. Hi everybody, I'm Jay from Ukulele J Barbecue, and I have done numerous videos on rolling knife sharpeners, the manual rolling knife sharpeners. I've got power knife sharpeners, but I never had a powered rolling knife sharpener. And this is the ZFORGE by Longzon. It is a rolling knife sharpener, but it is powered. It is rechargeable, it is cordless, it's really surprising, and they also have a new angle guide that I've never seen before that lets you adjust your knife to any angle, whether it's large or small, between 10 and 25 degrees, which means your knife would be a 20 to 50 degree apex angle. We're going to talk about that, and I want to show you how this thing works and how it's an absolute game changer for the rolling knife sharpener market. Now, we've all seen rolling knife sharpeners such as this. You can name them 20 different names, make sharpeners like this. And I've done a lot of videos on that. And they are a great sharpener. I also was the one that released the first video ever on the internet about the truth behind the original rolling knife sharpener, which hundreds of thousands of people and tens of thousands of comments in my videos were basically lambasting me that the original knife sharpener wasn't what I was showing them, it was something else. And this went on and on and on with all these different videos. And I finally did research, a very deep research on the original rolling knife sharpener. And that video can be seen right up here. So make sure you check it out so you can understand how the rolling knife sharpener was invented and how it evolved. And now today, it's evolved even farther with this ZFORGE by Longzon. There's never been a rolling sharpener that I've seen like this, nor has there been an angle guide that can be adjusted by just twisting this button and give you the perfect angle on your knife. I did a couple sharpenings with different knives, and I worked on honing, no pun intended, my technique to get the maximum results out of this sharpener. Now this sharpener, when you press the button back here, and there's a USB-C port to charge it, the light will come on, and this disc actually starts to turn. Now it's turning at around 300 RPMs, so 300 revolutions per minute, which is actually a really good speed. I was concerned about how fast it was because I didn't want to take off too much metal too quickly. In this, you've got multiple discs that come. It's a 4-disc set. They're each marked in the back. They're really nice construction, beautiful printing on the back. You can see exactly what they are. And in this case, we've got the 6,000 grit. We've got a 3,000 grit, which really is kind of your honing and polishing stones. Then you have a 360, which right here tells you it's a 360 diamond grit. And it's a really nice disc. Looks like the other diamond discs. They probably all come from a very similar factory. And you've got the 600 diamond disc as well. So we've got the 360, we've got the 600, we've got the 3000, and we've got the 6000, which really is what I think is the minimal set you would need to sharpen and get your knives to that razor sharpness everybody likes to get in the kitchen. Now this is focused on kitchen knives. You can do everyday carry knives, and I'll have another video down the road about that, but today's really focused on the review of this product and how it works. And we're gonna do some testing. I've got my best tester here, which is gonna show me relative sharpness. We're gonna talk about that. I've got a best testing score sheet that I've come up with. I've actually taken one that's been out there for many, many years, and I've actually modified it to make it a little cleaner and easier to read and understand. So we'll go over that. And then we'll do our little paper cut test that everybody likes to see how sharp a knife is at, which really doesn't tell you how sharp it is. It's just something that's evolved over the years, and everybody likes to slice paper to show their knife sharp. But I've proven in other videos that one knife can slice paper that's a lot duller than another knife, and it's all relative. But we'll get into that later. So I want to talk about this. In the box comes the USB cable, which to charge your unit. And I did have another demo that I was using. So it comes with a really nice wrapped unit inside here. Everything's nicely placed in this heavy duty foam. And so it comes very secure from the factory. I'm going to take you through my sharpening process using the ZFORGE by Longzon. I'm going to show you how I start my knife sharpening and how I get it double edge razor sharp. One of the most important things when you sharpen your knife is take your time. This is not a rush, it's not a race, and things need to be done slowly and methodically in order to achieve great results. Now, unlike a lot of other channels out there, they cater to a knife crowd. My channel caters to you, the average person who is wanting to learn to sharpen their knife. You're a cook in the kitchen, a home cook, maybe a professional personal chef, but you really want to learn about knife sharpening in the kitchen, and you don't want to listen to all the super technical details that really go over a lot of individuals' heads, and it really doesn't matter to those who just want to sharpen their knife and use it and enjoy a nice blade cutting in the kitchen. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the sharpener holder. This is the magnetic holder that has an angle dial on the back here, which goes from 10 to 25 degrees. Now, I already sharpened this knife, but I brought this out for demonstration to show you it does the small paring knives. It actually does smaller, and it does the very large knives as well. For the smaller knives, you'll notice that the magnet can be placed this way, or you can turn it this way. Now remember, either way is 15 degrees. Whether it's like this or it's like this, it's still 15 degrees. So for this type of smaller knife, I would place this down here like so. Move this out of the way for you. And you can put it up against here and you can sharpen it this way with the blade, or you can actually sharpen it this way with the blade as well. But because this is small and it may not stick out far enough, which in this case it actually does, so you can do it either way, but it's really designed so you can do the real small knives and the real large knives without any problems with this magnetic sharpening holder. And now here's the chef's knife I'm going to use for this demonstration. So I'm going to start with the 600 grit today. There's a 360, which is a little coarse. This knife is not bloody razor sharp, but it's pretty sharp. So we're going to do a best test on it, show you the score, then we're going to start the sharpening with the 600, then we're going to go on to the 3000 stone, and then we're going to go on to the 6000 stone, and I'm going to finish it off with a leather strop, which if you watch my videos, I always finish off all my knife sharpening with a leather strop, and then you're ready to do your next test to see the difference between the sharpening before and the sharpening after, and of course we'll do the paper test as well. So before we go to official numbers, let's do the paper slice test. Okay, it's fairly sharp, but you get a little bit of tear on the end. So if I just run it through easily and just pull it, it's a little jaggedy. Okay, and what this does is this lets you feel the evenness of the sharpness on this blade. So if you're pulling it through and it's really smooth in one area, but then like back here I could notice it didn't cut right away. Then as you go through, it feels smooth and then it starts roughening up again. And I felt like a roughness here. That means that this blade is probably not the ultimate sharpness and polishing on this part of the blade. So you can go back and you can rework it if you want. It's really merely a test to do that. And just because you can take your paper and, you know, there's ways you can fudge the test too that I see people do, but just because you can do this doesn't mean it's sharp. And in that case, you could see it was a little rough. So we're going to test this now on the best tester. Let's see what score it is that does this to the paper. So this is our Sharp Electronics best tester. Best is a certification that scores the gram pressure amounts on a particular knife edge, and you get a series of scores. You can see here by this sheet that the scores range from a horrible 2000, which is like a butter knife or worse, all the way down to 0, which I've never seen a 0, but I've gotten down in the 50s and the 40s on a double-edged razor blade. And we're going to zero this out, and we're going to see what this tells us. So we're going to place this here in the fulcrum, and I'm going to use, let's use this logo right here. That's going to be our guide, so we show you we're doing it in the same place every time. So I'll lower this down and want to slowly press, and we'll get a score of 197, which is actually pretty sharp when it comes to cutting things. Now that's that part of the blade. It's just about utility razor blade. This is a thick cut piece of paper, so again, to try to do this and say it's sharp versus not being sharp, the real test is when you're cooking with your food, but I'm not here to argue that point. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to take this anyways, it's at 197. I'm going to start the process and basically take this edge and even it out, and I'm going to show you how much difference we can get going from a 600 to a 3000 to a 6000, finishing off the leather strop, and let's see if we can beat 197. Now, this is a good score. So if something was 197, I probably wouldn't sharpen it necessarily in the kitchen yet. I usually wait till it's around 225, 250, and then we'll go down and sharpen it. And in most cases, I don't even check on here. I just know after a certain amount of time, I can sharpen my knife and I'm good to go. And I usually hone my knives only. I don't sharpen them very often, and I have videos on that as well. You can look on my channel on should you be sharpening your knife or should you be honing and then leather stropping your knife. So in this case, I know this knife is 15 degrees. If you don't know, I have other videos on how to tell the degrees of your knife, so just take a look. So take a look at my channel. I have tons of knife sharpening videos on there. In this case, you can set this to 15 degrees, which in this case, we're going to go ahead and turn this to 15, which is right here, 15 degrees. In this case, you can actually take this and place this up like so, because we have the blade at a nice upward angle, and you can see here as you go across with this, it comes all the way across the blade evenly, and you don't go below it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn this on, and it's gonna sound really bad. That's just because it's brand new. But we're gonna turn this on. This is rotating at 300 RPMs, 300 revolutions per minute, but the best results I get are from going from back to front on the knife. So we're gonna go 5 passes, back to front. You wanna go nice and slow. Make sure you're making contact with the blade. You don't need to press super hard though. You just want it to make contact and step against that blade. And then we're gonna go ahead and flip it over and do it the same way, except this time we're gonna go from back to front also with the knife flipped around. So go back to front. And there we've got our first passes done. So we'll take a look at this knife, and let's take a look and see what it looks like. And in this case, you can see we've got metal dust up here along the top edge, and it definitely took off the metal, but we can see that it's actually really even all the way down the edge, and we want to make sure that as we form that edge, we keep that even and don't get any roughness, which is why you want to keep that up against that and run it nice and smoothly to prevent it from actually popping and actually causing any type of unusual sharpening wear on that blade. They do say you want to sharpen to a burr, but in this case, we probably took it off because we're doing both sides, and we're not doing it a lot. So this knife probably didn't need the 600, but I did it just to show you that we can use the 600 and get started, and then we're going to go up from there. Next is going to be the 3000, which really is a big jump. I wish that the ZFORGE had a 1000 or a 1600 in here, but in this case, we're going to go ahead and make the jump to the 3000. Now it says whetstone, and I clarified with the company it really isn't a wet stone because you don't want to soak this, and it's something that I think they should adjust the language on, and they probably will because they've listened to some of my feedback and made some changes in this unit. And when I got it noticed whetstone, I actually did soak the stone and it worked fantastic, but they said you don't do that and you shouldn't do that because there's actually a glue that this is adhered to, and with long soaking over time it may come off, which in the case I suggested they use an epoxy or something that is waterproof, so if people do soak it, it doesn't cause damage because, as we know, people do things they're not supposed to do all the time. So you kind of have to prepare for that and plan and do things so that you expect people are going to misuse something, and do your best to shore it up so that if they do misuse it, it doesn't cause a problem right away. So now we're going to go ahead and do the 3000. And again, I'm going to go 5 passes. I'll show you this. And then we're going to turn it over and do the other side again. And it turns pretty easily. You just basically add a little more pressure on one side and you can get this piece here to turn, because this actually does have little wheels on the bottom with a little bit of a rubber piece in the center. So you can actually turn this pretty smoothly on a curve. And we'll take a look at this, clean it off, and I can see that this blade is definitely sharpened evenly, but I can still see a bunch of striations on there. So we may want to do this for quite a few more passes. Again, this 600 grit I think was a little coarse for this knife because it really didn't need it. Again, I only have a 3000, so we're going to start with the 3000 again. And this time we're going to, and you can go back and forth if you want, but I found that really going one way from back to front seems to give me the best results. And I can see that I'm taking out a lot of those marks now, which were the marks from the really coarse stone. So again, it's kind of aesthetic, and it really isn't a problem, but so far it's looking pretty good. We're going to change this, which is really simple. Just pop it off like this. Comes off. It's got some strong magnets. And now we're going to go to the 6000 whetstone, it says, but it's a dry stone. We're We're gonna put that in there, and then we're gonna clean this off so we don't have any material on this. And then we're gonna go with the 6000 and get started and see how that goes. And again, this is for the average person. This is not for professional knife sharpeners. I'm not a professional knife sharpener. I'm somebody who just loves to sharpen knives, and I do a lot of different styles of knives and types of knives and a lot of different types of sharpening, especially for cooking in the kitchen. I'm always sharpening my knives in some fashion. Okay, we're gonna clean this up. Gonna give it a final leather strop. This is buffalo leather that I have. When I leather strop, there's a lot of ways to do it. I'm just gonna go ahead and find the angle, and I'm gonna move this across. This actually does polish the knife, and it does, contrary to some people that says it doesn't, it actually does sharpen the knife. It does get it sharper as well. And you can actually do it in phases if you want to just do part of it first and then do the back. There's a lot of ways you can do it. Just find what works for you, and don't listen to anybody else telling you you're doing it the wrong way, because the only wrong way is if you do something that's damaging the knife. There's a lot of different styles and ways you can actually leather strop, and this is just how I do mine. Okay, we'll go and do a test. Oh, that's sharper for sure. Oh yeah. Now, a lot of people ask me, what are you doing on your thumb? Well, this is what I call the thumbnail test. I explain it in my other videos. It's kind of a layman's way without any type of equipment to tell if your knife is really sharp. If you have a knife that's not sharp and you put it down, it's going to bounce around and it's going to slide over your nail like so. If you have a razor sharp knife and this is feeling really sharp and you just set it down, drag it across your nail, you can see my fingers moving, that knife is not sliding around. It's embedded in there, and just from setting it down, it's so sharp that it grabs that nail, which tells me I think it's ready. So when we do this, that's like butter. You saw that? And you can hear how it's not tearing and it's actually slicing the knife, as opposed to the other one. You'll see people doing little tiny ones. So it's sharp. So for those of you that want the paper test, there it is. You got the paper test. Now we're going to go to more science, and we're going to go to the best tester. We're going to test right here in the center. We're going to place this down like so. We're going to zero this out, tear it, T-A-R-E, not T-E-A-R. Go ahead and zero it out, and we'll go ahead and do the test. $139. $139. We actually did get it sharper. And again, I roughed this up because I took a coarse grit and ran it across here, which really destroyed any sharpness it was and had to bring it back. Then going to the 3000 and then the 6000 honing disc, and then finishing off my leather strop. So 139, if you can see now on my guide, 100 is the top of the double-edged razor. 139 is just above that. So we in fact dulled the knife, took it sharper, and made it sharper than it was before using the ZFORGE. Now, I did this very quickly. I may take more time in the past with other knives, but I've done about 7 knives already with this tester in all different configurations, including my very expensive Japanese knife that I love. I was very nervous, I'll tell you, but you know, if I can't use it with all my knives, then it's something I shouldn't be using. But I was really happy with this. I started with this with the 3000 and 6000 only because I knew this was already sharp. I think in the case of most knives, you probably, if they're not sharp at all, would not want to go down to the most coarsest stone unless that blade is in a really bad condition. I would definitely start with the 600. It's a nice diamond stone, and again, it'll sound a little rough at first and it'll smooth out once you start using it, but the diamond will still work effectively once that harsh sound kind of goes away a little bit, just because you have those raw diamonds that are sticking up from the brand new manufacturing process. So I think there are some really good pros to the device, and there's a couple things that you just have to watch out for. First thing is, it absolutely works. It is something that is unique to the market. For the limited time that I've actually tested this, which like I said, I think I've done about 7 knives on it. Spent a lot of time talking to the company, finding out information about, you know, the RPM, how fast this is spinning. It says whetstone. Is it whetstone? No, it's really not. You use it dry. I think, and my suggestion to Longzon is get a whetstone. I think it's great. If you could soak a whetstone to it, I really like the fact that you can, you know, use your stone wet or dry. In this case, they said don't soak it and use it dry. If you can see, it's kind of hard. This is really shiny already. It's super polished. So it's really fine again. And at 3000, you're going to have that stone with a real kind of a polished look, which really polishes the blade. And then when you come down to this This is the 6000. This is the honing disc. And this material, of course, as you can tell, looks much different than this material. And it does a really good job as well. I have not gone through a cleaning process of this yet, so that'll be something down the road. Once this gets, completely covered, I'll go ahead and see what I can do to clean this up and get it off, or if it's even necessary. So I'll probably do a test before, like this, get it really clean, do another test, and see how it pans out. I think the one thing you have to be careful for when you're doing this is the direction you go on your knives. On some of the knives that I had, going back along the knife this way caused a little bit of jitter. When I call jitter, you would feel this start to kind of vibrate a little bit, which isn't really damaging the knife per se. It's just going to cause an unevenness, and it may catch the blade. And if you have something like a really expensive blade like this, and you've got a really super feathery thin apex on top, possibility that something can happen there, but it hasn't happened. Just something to be careful for. That's why when I said I like to go from back to front, I found that's the least resistance that I get on the knives using this type of sharpener. So I typically go from back to front. Although you saw me sharpen from front to back, it does work. I probably would stick to only back to front with the coarser grits. I think once you're up in the 3000, especially the 6000 range, I think going back and forth might be just fine. But if you do feel that jitter occur, I would just stop and go back and start at the back and just go from back to front where I haven't had that experience. So if you want to talk about a con, it isn't really a con, it's an effect of using a stone that's rotating at a particular RPM. Now, if this was a little bit slower or maybe a little faster, maybe it wouldn't happen. I just noticed at the 300 RPMs, I did get that little bit of jitter. However, I think it's a great device. And the one thing I love about it is this holder with the magnets on here. The fact I can take any knife, curved knife, small knife, use it and have it up or down depending on how my knife fits best. And the fact I can take this and just with a quick dial, adjust the angles and not worry about anything, it is really fantastic. I was excited about this, and I am, but I think I'm more excited about this because I can use this and use anything to sharpen it along with this. If this went dead, say, and I'm somewhere where I took this and it's completely dead, I always have a manual backup rolling knife sharpener that I would pull out, and I could actually then use it and just have to carry that. I always believe in having backups to everything. I never want to be caught without the ability to do anything in a kitchen, including sharpening a knife if you need to sharpen it. As far as the quality of the product, it's rock solid. The way it's built, it is a plastic housing, but it's really tight. There's no loose parts on it. It feels really solid. It's got a nice heavy motor in here. I've had no problem. It will shut off. And my only con for me is if I'm doing something over a long period of time and it shuts off, I've got to go restart it again. It's not a con that it's bad. It's just that I would like either the ability to press the button and keep it on all the time, or maybe have something where you press it once and you get a 30-second cycle, twice for a 60-second cycle, 3 times for an infinite cycle. And that's what I do. I test this equipment, I give feedback to companies, and when I got this product initially, it had a couple issues that I talked to them about, which they resolved, more on the technical side of things, and really did a nice job on this piece. I think that for somebody who wants to get in rolling knife sharpeners, this would satisfy the need. So, in conclusion, I think this is a perfectly good sharpener by Longzon, the ZFORGE. I think that the ability to take these on and off is really nice, and in this case, the magnets are really strong. You can see these magnets here, but they're made in such a way that when they go on, you can't put them on an off angle, like with just a magnet. They fit in and they hold perfectly right where they need to be, so you don't get any type of wobble or uneven rotation when this is turning. It stays in place, which is really important. And again, you've got the 4 discs, which I think is a really nice starter set. Again, I'd like to see some different grits with this. I think that jumping from a 3000 to a 6000 and not having anything between the 3000 and the 600 is a really big jump. So I think they should shore up that gap. And I would think and hope at some point that they have a whole line of these discs across a wide range so that you can pick and choose what you want for your set. The other thing I'd like to see is I'd like to see a leather on here for leather stropping. So you could actually take the leather and move it across the knife and actually do your stropping with some power behind it. That would be a really cool feature. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video of the ZFORGE by Longzon. I really appreciate you giving me a like and subscribing, especially for any of the knife sharpening videos. I've got a lot of them out there. I've taken a break from the sharpening, been doing some cooking, and I've got lots more lined up with other companies that have contacted me with products where they want me to review them, put them to the test, and show you what I think of their products. Until next time, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Smoke on, baby!